I want to tell you about two engineers that I worked with. It was a number of years ago now, but the lessons are really still clear and relevant. One was brilliant. He was the guy I went to when there was something I couldn't resolve, something I couldn't understand. He was always quietly solving the complex problems. He did exceptional work, and he was the kind of person I wanted on all of my projects. The other, he was competent, not exceptional, but confident. Guess which one got promoted and which one had the amazing career path? I'm Kirsten, and this is Digging a Little Deeper into English with Kirsten. I help mining professionals communicate clearly enough to lead, advance, and work safely across cultures. In some episodes, I share stories from the field, my own experiences over 20 years in mining. In other episodes, I bring you voices from the industry, professionals who have overcome real communication challenges. Every episode, real experience, practical lessons. Today, I want to talk about why technical excellence alone won't necessarily advance your career, and what the quiet achievers listening to this need to understand about workplace visibility. Because I've seen this happen too many times, and it breaks my heart nearly every single time. Let me set the scene. I'm going to call them, let's say, Mark and James. Not their real names, obviously, but I am really serious about anonymity. So, Mark, the quiet achiever, he'd been in the industry longer than me, maybe 5 years before me he entered. He was technically gifted, and I mean genuinely smart. He was the kind of engineer who could look at any problem that everyone else was stuck on and just see the solution. It was just so simple for him. His work was always thorough. He was reliable, hardly ever took breaks, and it was high quality work. He'd get the tough projects, he'd finish them, submit them, and move on to the next one. No fuss, no drama, just solid, consistent work. In meetings, he kept his head down. He didn't speak unless someone asked him a direct question. And when they did, his answers were short, brief, technical, to the point. And we moved on. He seemed to me to operate under this assumption that good work would always be recognized, it would speak for itself. That if you just kept your head down, got your work done, did amazing work, then people would notice. Now, James was another engineer at the time, a graduate, and he was fresh out of university. Technically, he was competent, solid, but not exceptional, not like Mark. But the big difference, James talked. He was a talker. In team meetings, he'd speak up. When he finished something, he didn't just finish it. He'd talk about it. He'd walk people through it. Let me show you what I did and the approach I took. He asked questions, good questions, the kind that made him look thoughtful, even if he wasn't the cleverest person in the room. And with Mark there, that's a hard thing to be. But when management was making decisions on who got the opportunities, James made sure his work was visible. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. James could be a bit much. Mouthy, arrogant, particularly at the start. The kind of graduate who comes in thinking they know everything. As a group, we ended up taking him down a peg or two, which, let's be real, happens kind of often sometimes with engineering graduates when they enter the workplace. is part of the learning curve, especially in Australia. But he learned and he became more collaborative and less arrogant. He became a really good friend of mine. He is a really nice guy, actually. But what I noticed was those communication skills that really annoyed me early on, they didn't go away. They just got refined, improved. So both of these guys were on similar projects, all in same teams or similar teams, and they both had the same opportunities to advance. Mark's approach was to finish a project, make sure it was working, to review the project, and to move on to the next problem. The problems he solved were significant. His solutions were elegant, they worked, they saved amazing amount of time, money, headaches for me, and he submitted his report. In the team meeting when we talked about progress on projects, etc., he would just be really clear. Yep, that's been completed and it's resolved. That's it. No context. He didn't talk about the challenges he'd overcome. He didn't even really talk about the value that he had just delivered. Just that's completed. James, though, when he was working on a project, he talked about it. So I've been working on this project, and this is what I think matters. He was collaborative. Involved people into his thought process and he connected it to department goals. And when he presented the findings to management, he told a story. This is the problem we were facing. This is the approach I took. Here's the result. And this is what it means for the next phase of the project. He made his work visible and he made it understandable. Most importantly, he put it into context. He made it memorable. When it came time for opportunities, promotions, interdepartmental transfers, all of those kinds of projects, management remembered James. They understood what he'd contributed. They trusted that he understood the needs of the business and that he could deliver the outcomes the business needed. Because he had already articulated this. He'd already told them his value by his commentary. Mark's work? They didn't really think about it. They didn't remember the details. He was the quiet achiever, that he wasn't in the front of their mind. Maybe they didn't understand exactly what he'd done. Maybe they didn't understand the value he had brought. Some of the contributions and the value had even been thought of as being done by other people because they talked about the work he'd done. He had never made it clear that he was the one who had done that work. So James got those opportunities and Mark stayed exactly where he was. The thing that got me, the thing that really bothered me, is that this wasn't favoritism. James wasn't popular. James wasn't the guy in the team that everyone loved and got along with. It wasn't politics. It wasn't that the management team didn't like Mark or did like James. It's just simply that James had communicated his value and Mark hadn't. Management was busy. They're always busy. They're managing multiple teams, multiple projects, and they're answering to people above. They don't have time to go digging to discover every person's value. If you don't tell them, they're not going to know. So, what happened to these two? Well, James runs his own business today. He's in a pretty powerful position actually, doing really well, making good money. He was confident and he had the ability to communicate and he capitalized on that. I can see why it all worked for him. He had the communication skills, even when they were rough, even when they annoyed me immensely. And these built his career. He knew how to make himself visible, and he knew how to express the value he brought. And that skill set gets rewarded. Mark, wow. Redundancies came around a few years later, and Mark was let go. He struggled. He was out of work for a long time, a couple of years at least. I'm not exactly sure on the details, but he did eventually find another position, senior technical level, which is fine. I mean, it's work and he's good at that level. But this is someone with genuine talent, deep expertise. Without these kinds of guys, projects are not successful. And he was stuck at senior tech level, while people with way less technical ability, they're running departments and leading teams and building the business. This wasn't because Mark wasn't good enough, but because he never communicated what he was capable of. When the axe fell, when the redundancies happened, no one stepped in and said, "We need him." Not because they didn't care, because they didn't understand. He had never made it clear. This particular situation, I've seen a number of others as well, but this one in particular disappoints me. It still does. It's not just about Mark and James, right? We've all seen this happen time and time again. It's it's one of these myths that we have in the industry that your work will speak for itself. It doesn't. Communication is part of your deliverable. Technical people often don't understand this. We're so focused on the technical detail that we think when that is finished, our work is finished. But your work is not complete when you've solved the technical problem. Your work is complete when you've solved the problem and communicated what you did and why it matters. I mean, think about it. If you design an amazing solution, but no one understands it, what's the value? If you deliver exceptional work, but your manager doesn't know about it, how can they fight for your promotion and opportunities? Communication isn't an extra. We call it a soft skill, but it's not a soft skill that you can ignore. It is a core part of being professionally competent. What James did was right. He wasn't smarter than Mark. He's certainly not a better engineer. But he did four things that Mark didn't. He spoke up in meetings. He framed his work in terms of the value and the impact, not just task completed. He told stories about his work. And humans, we remember stories. And he made it easy for management to understand his value. And Mark was confusing humility or being humble with being silent. They're not the same thing. You can be humble and communicate your value. In fact, personally, I think you should. Mark treated communication as optional, something extra, something for people who need to self promote. He was wrong on this one. Communication isn't optional, it is a core part of what we do. By not speaking up for himself, by assuming that people would just notice, he did himself a big disservice. Here's the uncomfortable truth for how organizations work. Managers promote people they trust, and trust comes from understanding. Understanding requires communication. So trust requires visibility. They need to see what you can do. You can't demonstrate your capability in silence. You just can't. Look, I know some of you listening will be thinking, I am not good at self promotion. It feels gross. It feels icky. It feels like bragging. Mm, I know you're thinking it because that's exactly how I think. I get it. But I want to reframe this. This isn't about bragging. I don't encourage bragging. It's just about making your contribution understandable and memorable. You just have to go that one step further, connect your work you've done to the organizational goals. You've done the job, just close it out. Include that little communication piece. If you do the exceptional work and no one knows about it, you've left the job half done. So here's what I learned from watching this play out. You don't get paid for what you know. Your expertise, it's invisible to everyone else. On some level, you don't even just get paid for what you do, because if no one understands what you did, it has no value. You get paid for what you've done and what you can communicate about what you've done. Your ability to articulate your contribution, to connect it to business outcomes, to make it memorable and understandable. That's what will get you recognition. That's what will get you rewards, and that is what will get you promoted. It isn't unfair. It may feel unfair, I get that, but this is just how business functions. Managers make decisions based on what they see and understand. Your job is to make your work visible. For the quiet achievers listening to this, you don't have to be a loud extrovert. Don't panic. You don't have to oversell or exaggerate. You don't have to become James at his most annoying. Please don't. You just have to make your work visible. Being silent is not being humble. It is a form of professional self-sabotage. Okay, so what do you actually do with this? Just start small. In the next team meeting, just the next one, speak up once. Just once. Say, here's what I'm working on this week and here's why it matters to the business. That's it. That's visibility. It will feel uncomfortable the first time. Do it anyway. Reframe your status reports. Stop just listing the tasks. Don't write task 1 completed. If it's a sampling protocol that's being designed, write completed the sampling protocol. By contamination risk will reduce by 10% and potentially save this much money in rework. See the difference? You're connecting what you've done to the value to the business. After you've completed any significant piece of work, practice saying out loud, I did X, which means Y benefit for the company. Say it to yourself first, then say it to your manager. Get comfortable with saying it. Now, for the managers listening, if you have a mark on your team, someone whose work is excellent but invisible, help them. Create opportunities for them to talk about their work. Ask them to explain what they did in team meetings. Maybe coach them on communication. Don't let talent go to waste just because someone doesn't naturally self-promote. I have watched so many talented people who deserve success, not get there or struggle to get there because they couldn't communicate their value. And I have watched so many people with half their talent advance because they could talk about it. I don't want that to be you. You don't have to be someone you're not, but you do have to complete the work, and that includes making it visible. If this episode hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. We all know a mark. Let's help them out. Thanks for listening.